Let's talk about parents who complain to their children about their spouses and whether or not that's emotionally abusive. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling women and men who have experienced abuse, as well as those who have been perpetrators of abuse and other violent crimes. I wanted to respond to this commenter. She says, what about parents who complain to their children about their spouses? Would you say that that's a form of emotional abuse? Absolutely. I think this is. I have talked to you all again about emotional dumping, and I think there's children need to be in their place, as well as parents also need to know their place. And I think when you involve your children in sort of talking negatively about your spouse, first of all, you are triangulating that child from that spouse or that parental figure. So you're creating a dynamic where your child is may be more aligned with you, or may start to feel guilty about aligning with you and listening to all of the negativity that you're talking to about the other parent. That child their views may also become slanted about that spouse or that parent. And, in a legal case, that could be, parental alienation, where you are, talking negatively about that child's spouse or parent. You're trying to get them to side with you, in line with you, by being manipulative or, controlling the narrative that child has about that parent. And a lot of times when parents are doing this, it is a negative narrative, and it causes their children to want to isolate or create distance themselves from that parent, or at least have a negative opinion or view of that parent. And there are parents that are especially cruel when doing this because it can go from complaining to coaching, and it can also go, when there's a fine line between complaining and coaching. Because parents can also implant memories or tell their children about things that didn't necessarily happen. So again, you definitely want to be careful when it comes to narratives and things like that parents are telling to their children. It also creates a dynamic to whereas they're controlling or they're manipulating how a child is able to bond with that spouse by, how's the child going to feel if mom tells that child that dad is terrible and that he's done such and such and that he's mean to her and things like that. Of course, it's going to create a dynamic where that child is, and this is just a hypothetical example, it's going to create a dynamic where that child is more inclined to want to protect or feel slighted by that, or also start to feel scared and things like that. It also creates a narrative where your child starts to feel like your therapist, or your child is put in the position to feel responsible for doing the emotional labor and the emotional work to take care of you and protect your emotions, or to be your cuddly teddy bear that you can run to every time something happens that you don't like. And on a more extreme level, it could also be there are parents that use this as a murder plot. So there's quite a few movies and famous cases and things like that where this sort of thing starts out as a narrative to get a parent where a parent will sway a child's opinion of their father or their mother, and will continue to sort of manipulate and spew these things to actually get their child to kill that parent, or to do something extreme commit some sort of extreme action or crime. But, you see this kind of stuff on, Forensic Files, Identity Channel, all these kind of shows and things like that. But this is where this starts from. This comes from dumping on children. Also, swaying the narrative, manipulating the child to think that one parent is all bad and complaining about things, telling their children about problems in the relationship, making the child feel bad or putting the child in the middle to be the emotional caretaker for both of the parents. This is the kind of stuff that happens in abuse or murder cases where children are manipulated and things like that. But this kind of stuff happens all the time. It's definitely a form of emotional and psychological abuse. And sometimes children don't it may take a child years to snap out of it or to see what's actually being done here. And by that time, a lot of damage has already been done. Sometimes relationships cannot be repaired because the animosity, the hostility, and things like the accusations have gone really far. And though that's an extreme version, but again, it's not uncommon for that kind of stuff to happen.